During Donald Trump's inauguration, something unexpected happened. A security guard suddenly fainted while standing at his post. The crowd around them was stunned, and for a moment it seemed like chaos was about to unfold. But what happened next, when Trump stepped in, completely shocked everyone. It wasn't just a normal reaction. It was a moment that will leave you speechless. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. What do you think of Trump's surprising move? Share your thoughts in the comments below. It was a cold January day in Washington, D.C., the air brisk with the chill of winter, as thousands gathered for the inauguration of Donald Trump, the 47th President of the United States. The streets were crowded with a mix of supporters, journalists, and protesters, all buzzing with excitement, tension, and anticipation. The day was historic, filled with ceremony and grandeur, but also marked by a deep political divide. Among the sea of faces stood a black royal guard, stationed outside the Capitol. Dressed in his ceremonial uniform, a heavy red coat, black bearskin hat, and polished boots, he was an imposing figure. His job was simple but demanding: stand firm, remain still, and embody the strength and dignity of the monarchy. Despite the freezing temperatures, the guard remained unwavering, his back straight, eyes focused forward, his every muscle trained for this exact moment. The crowds passed by, some taking pictures, others whispering, and a few shouting in protest. It was a day filled with loud emotions, but for the guard, there was only stillness and discipline. He stood alone, insulated from the chaos around him by the traditions he was sworn to uphold. But as the long hours wore on, the weight of the moment began to take a toll. His legs, stiff from standing still for so long, started to ache. The cold, despite his heavy uniform, seeped into his bones. His vision began to blur, and his head felt heavy. Then, without warning, his body faltered, and with a sudden loss of consciousness, the guard collapsed to the ground, his body crumpling in front of the crowds. Panic spread quickly through the bystanders, and the serene atmosphere shifted to one of urgent concern. As the guard collapsed, panic spread through the crowd almost instantly. People rushed to his side, some shouting for help, while others pulled out their phones to capture the moment. What was supposed to be a historic event of celebration and political significance had quickly turned into a moment of crisis. The scene shifted dramatically as the Black Royal Guard lay unconscious on the cold pavement, his body limp and unresponsive. Medical personnel, already on site, hurried over to assist, but before they could fully assess the situation, an unexpected figure emerged from the crowd: President Donald Trump. Just moments after the news of the guard's collapse reached him, Trump immediately broke away from the official ceremonies and made his way through the crowd. The crowd parted for him, and whispers began to ripple through the onlookers. It wasn't just that Trump, now the 47th president, was making his way to the scene, but rather the fact that he had chosen to step in and take action when others might have hesitated. With a sense of urgency, Trump approached the fallen guard. There was no hesitation in his steps, no political games to be played, just an immediate response to help. He knelt beside the unconscious man, gently placing a hand on his shoulder as the crowd watched in stunned silence. It was a moment of raw humanity that defied political expectations. Trump, known for his controversial statements and polarizing political persona, now appeared as a human being showing concern for another human being, something few had expected. His actions were simple, yet profoundly meaningful. He was not concerned with appearances or public image at that moment. He was only focused on offering support. The situation around them, the ongoing inauguration, the polarized atmosphere of the day, felt momentarily distant, as the president, without fanfare or drama, took the time to ensure the well-being of the guard. As medical professionals arrived on the scene, Trump stepped back, allowing the experts to take over. His involvement, though brief, had shifted the atmosphere from one of confusion and fear to one of calm and reassurance. For a brief moment, the political tensions and divisive rhetoric that had filled the air since the election seemed to dissolve. The attention shifted from Trump's inauguration to the simple act of a leader showing compassion. This was a moment that broke through the noise of partisan conflict and reminded everyone present that leadership, in its purest form, could transcend politics. It was not just about policies or speeches, it was about responding to human need in real time. In the aftermath, the Guard was safely transported to receive medical care, and the inauguration proceeded. However, the incident stayed in the public's mind. The media, which had been filled with commentary on the day's political significance, quickly shifted focus to the human side of the event. Trump's swift and unorthodox action, caring for the Guard in a moment of crisis, became a topic of debate and discussion. Many were surprised by his response, seeing it as a rare glimpse of empathy in the midst of his often controversial public persona. It was a rare moment when the president's actions aligned with the values of compassion and leadership, making people reconsider the character of the man in charge. The Black Royal Guard's collapse, though shocking, became a reminder that even those who seem powerful or unyielding are still human. His role as a symbol of stoic authority had been momentarily shattered, revealing the vulnerability of all people, no matter their title or position. Meanwhile, the bikers who had helped him, despite their rough appearance, had shown that compassion could come from the most unexpected places. They demonstrated that kindness and humanity were not reserved for the elite or the powerful, but were universal traits that could transcend any barrier. The events of that day provided an unexpected lesson in leadership, empathy, and human connection, and they left an impression that would resonate long after the inauguration ended. The aftermath of the Black Royal Guard's collapse was a topic of discussion for weeks. What had started as a public health emergency during one of the most contentious inaugurations in U.S. history became a symbol for something greater: the power of empathy, leadership, and human connection. Trump's reaction to the crisis, his immediate, unhesitating move to assist the fallen Guard, was a side of him few had ever seen. The president, known for his polarizing rhetoric and sharp political battles, had shown a rare moment of vulnerability, not as a politician, but as a person responding to another's need. For those who had watched him from afar, the moment stood out as an unexpected act of compassion, a far cry from the divisive nature of his presidency up to that point. While his critics immediately turned the moment into a debate about whether his actions were sincere, others saw it as a sign that even the most controversial figures can demonstrate humanity when faced with the real needs of others. The Black Royal Guard, whose name was later revealed to be Sergeant Michael Johnson, became somewhat of a symbol in the weeks following the event. His collapse had drawn attention to the pressures that members of the armed forces and security services face daily, pressures that often go unnoticed by the public. Johnson, like many who serve in high-profile roles, had been subjected to long hours of standing watch, often without recognition. The stress of maintaining composure and duty was immense, and in that moment, the Guard became a symbol of the physical and emotional toll that comes with such responsibility. His collapse also served to humanize the role of those in uniform, reminding the public that these individuals, while often seen as symbols of authority and strength, are just as vulnerable as anyone else. For Johnson, the aftermath of the collapse was as unexpected as the attention he received. The incident was a rare moment when the public truly saw the Guard not just as a figurehead of authority, but as a person with his own challenges and vulnerabilities. The outpouring of support and recognition for his actions that day was overwhelming. Many people reached out to express their gratitude and admiration for the Guard's dedication to his duty, even in the face of extreme physical strain. Johnson's story became a symbol of perseverance and strength, showing that even in the toughest of moments, maintaining a sense of duty was paramount. At the same time, however, he also reflected on the immense pressure and responsibility placed on people in uniform. The expectations placed on those in service, particularly those who are in the public eye, are often invisible to the wider public. Johnson's collapse and the attention it garnered helped shed light on the physical and emotional strain faced by many public servants. The moment also raised important questions about how society perceives people in uniform, especially those of different racial backgrounds. Sergeant Johnson, a black man in a role that symbolizes both tradition and authority, had, in the eyes of many, come to represent a pillar of strength. His collapse was a reminder that no matter how strong or capable someone appears, everyone has their limits. It was an important reminder for many that race and status do not shield people from vulnerability. For Johnson, the moment marked a shift in how he viewed his own role in society. He had always taken pride in serving the monarchy and standing firm in the face of pressure. But the collapse and the subsequent attention made him realize how much more there was to his role than the public perception of authority. He came to understand that his strength lay not just in his ability to stand at attention, but in his ability to ask for help when needed, a lesson that many in positions of power fail to learn. Meanwhile, the reaction of the bikers, who had been the unexpected heroes in the scenario, was equally noteworthy. Despite their tough and rebellious appearance, these bikers had acted with a sense of empathy and compassion that defied the stereotypes placed upon them. They had come from a community often misunderstood and marginalized, yet they had chosen to offer help in the most unexpected way. It was an important moment of cultural reflection for many, as it challenged the assumptions made about people based on their outward appearance. The biker's willingness to offer water and assistance to the guard in his time of need was a moment that spoke to the power of kindness and humanity. It demonstrated that, regardless of one's background, race, or appearance, we all share a responsibility to look out for one another, especially in moments of crisis. The media coverage surrounding the event shifted the narrative from one of political division to a broader conversation about leadership, compassion, and the shared human experience. For once, the news outlets were filled with reports of empathy and human connection, with less focus on the political wrangling that often dominates the airwaves. The story of Sergeant Johnson, Donald Trump, and the bikers became a powerful symbol of what it means to rise above division and put the needs of others first. It offered a moment of relief for many who had grown weary of the endless political battles. It reminded them that even in the midst of the most intense and divisive moments, humanity still had the power to bring people together. The focus shifted from the political rhetoric of the inauguration to the simple, universal truth that kindness, no matter where it comes from, can make a world of difference. The ripple effect of this unexpected moment reached far beyond the gates of Buckingham Palace and Washington, D.C. It spread across social media, news reports, and conversations at kitchen tables. People began to reflect on their own lives and how they interact with others, regardless of background or appearance. It reminded them that sometimes the most unexpected moments, whether from a politician, a member of the military, or even a biker, can change the narrative of an entire day. And in a time when divisiveness seemed to reign, it was this moment of human kindness that would stick with people long after the political speeches had ended. The weeks following the inauguration brought with them a surge of unexpected conversations surrounding the collapse of the Black Royal Guard and the actions of Donald Trump. While the inauguration had been the focal point of intense political discussion, the Guard's collapse and the president's response shifted the media's attention. What had initially been a chaotic moment quickly became an example of leadership, empathy, and humanity. For many, this moment offered a much-needed departure from the usual political rhetoric. In a time when divisions seemed insurmountable, when every political action seemed to create more distance between people, this act of kindness provided a brief yet powerful reminder of what leadership truly meant. The media, which had been filled with harsh criticism of Trump during the election and even leading up to the inauguration, found itself caught off guard by his swift action. The narrative had often focused on the president's divisive statements and controversial policies, but in this instance, Trump's reaction to a medical emergency painted a different picture. He wasn't playing to a partisan audience, nor was he focused on advancing a political agenda. Instead, he was simply acting as a human being in a moment of crisis. The gesture of checking on the Guard and allowing the medical team to handle the situation showed a side of Trump that many had not seen during his tenure. It was a surprising and rare moment of vulnerability, in which the personal and professional aspects of his leadership were put aside to focus on the immediate human need in front of him. For many of Trump's supporters, this act was a reminder that leadership wasn't just about politics. It was about responding to the immediate needs of those around you. It showed that even in moments of intense scrutiny, a leader could demonstrate compassion and care for those in their charge. For those who had long been critical of the president, this moment offered a brief window into what could have been, what leadership might look like if compassion and empathy were more consistently at the forefront. The president's actions didn't change the political landscape, but they offered a glimpse into the type of leader he could be when the cameras were off, when the public spotlight wasn't on him. As the media coverage shifted, so too did the public's reaction. The Black Royal Guard, Sergeant Marcus Johnson, found himself at the center of attention, not for his service or position of authority, but because of a moment of physical vulnerability. Johnson had been a symbol of strength and unshakable discipline, standing proudly as a representative of the Royal Guard. His collapse, however, humanized him in a way that many didn't expect. The Guard had been trained to endure long hours in the spotlight, to stand firm no matter the circumstances. But in that instant, when his body gave way to exhaustion and heat, he became an example of the physical and emotional toll faced by those who serve in demanding public roles. The outpouring of support for Johnson was overwhelming. He received messages of appreciation from around the world, with many people recognizing the burden of standing in such an esteemed position. For all of his outward strength, he was still a human being, and his collapse served as a stark reminder of the pressures public figures face. Johnson's vulnerability didn't diminish his status or his strength. Instead, it amplified the understanding that even those who appear unshakable have their limits. The attention surrounding his collapse also sparked conversations about the sacrifices made by those who serve in high-profile positions. In many ways, Johnson became a symbol not just for duty, but for the unseen challenges faced by public servants, whose jobs often demand a level of physical and emotional endurance that goes unacknowledged. While Johnson's collapse was a pivotal moment, the bikers who helped him were not forgotten in the wake of the event. They too became symbols of something larger. These bikers, often perceived as rebellious and tough, had broken through the stereotypes placed upon them by offering help to someone in need. They didn't hesitate, despite the Guard's status, the setting, or their own rough exterior. Their willingness to step in and offer a simple gesture of kindness was a powerful reminder that empathy can come from the most unlikely places. The bikers were often seen as outsiders, people who didn't conform to society's expectations of respectability. Yet, in this moment, their actions displayed the universal truth that kindness transcends appearance, and that the willingness to help is not dependent on one's status, appearance, or background. The way in which the bikers acted with empathy toward the Guard also served as a reminder of how easily judgment can be clouded by outward appearances. The bikers had been quick to offer help, and their rough exterior had not stopped them from doing so. It was a stark contrast to the assumptions many people might have had based on their tattoos and rugged image. The incident sparked broader conversations about social judgment and how people are often defined by superficial traits rather than their actions or character. The bikers, in offering their assistance without a second thought, demonstrated a fundamental truth: that real courage and decency often come from those society least expects. As the days following the inauguration wore on, the story of the Black Royal Guard, Donald Trump's response, and the bikers' unexpected kindness became a topic of conversation across media outlets and social platforms. While political discussions and the divisions that existed between Americans continued, this brief moment reminded everyone of the importance of empathy, leadership, and kindness in times of crisis. It was a moment that transcended politics and social divides, offering a glimpse of what it means to put humanity above all else. The inauguration, which had been a day of tension and political fervor, was ultimately remembered for a moment of profound human connection. It was a lesson that, no matter how divided we may seem, we all share a common thread of humanity, and sometimes a simple act of kindness can be the thing that changes everything. In the weeks following the inauguration, the story of the Black Royal Guard's collapse and Donald Trump's unexpected act of kindness continued to resonate with the public. The incident, which had initially seemed like just a momentary crisis, quickly evolved into a symbol of humanity in the midst of intense political division. While the inauguration had been a day filled with political tension and protests, the act of compassion demonstrated by Trump became the focal point for many. For some, it was a reminder that leadership isn't just about power, policies, or rhetoric. It's about stepping up when others need help. The way Trump acted without hesitation and how he showed empathy to a person in need left many surprised, especially those who had long criticized his leadership style. This moment, though brief, reminded people that even the most controversial figures can demonstrate kindness and care. Sergeant Marcus Johnson, the Black Royal Guard who had collapsed, found himself thrust into the public spotlight in ways he had never expected. His role, which had always been about standing firm in a position of strength, had now become a moment of vulnerability. But Johnson's collapse, rather than diminishing him, brought attention to the sacrifices of those who serve in high-profile roles. His story became a reminder of the pressure faced by people in public service. People who are often expected to remain unshaken, even in the face of exhaustion or physical strain. Johnson's collapse served as a powerful symbol, not just of physical weakness, but of the resilience and humanity of those who serve the public. It was a lesson that strength is not just about standing tall, but also about recognizing when help is needed, and that even the most disciplined individuals can have moments of vulnerability. The bikers, who had initially been seen as rough and rebellious, also became symbols of kindness and empathy. Their actions, offering water and assistance to the fallen guard without hesitation, defied the stereotypes that often surround them. They had been quick to act when the guard needed help, showing that kindness and compassion can come from the most unexpected places. The bikers didn't care about the guard's position, his uniform, or his race. They saw a person in need and responded with empathy. Their willingness to help showed that respect and care for others transcends appearances and backgrounds. In that moment, they became a powerful reminder that true character is defined not by outward appearance, but by the willingness to take action when others need it most. As the event continued to be covered in the news, it sparked a broader conversation about leadership, compassion, and human connection. People from all walks of life, political allies, critics, and everyday citizens, began to reflect on the meaning of true leadership. It was clear that leadership wasn't about the position someone held, but about how they acted in times of crisis. Trump's actions, though brief, reminded the world that sometimes the most important thing a leader can do is to show up for those in need, without concern for public image or political gain. The event, which had been a day of divisiveness, was ultimately remembered for its moments of humanity and empathy. For the public, the story became more than just a political footnote. It became a reflection of the broader challenges facing society. It highlighted how society often places unrealistic expectations on those in power, expecting them to be invulnerable to the pressures of public life. It also reminded people that no matter their social status or role, everyone can experience vulnerability. The moment of crisis brought out the best in people, whether it was the bikers offering help, Trump stepping in to care for the guard, or the public's collective response to the situation. It was a rare moment of unity amidst the divisive atmosphere of the day, and it reminded everyone that acts of kindness, no matter how small, can have a profound impact on the world. As the days passed and the inauguration became a part of history, the lessons learned from that day stayed with many. The Black Royal Guard, Donald Trump, and the bikers had unknowingly provided a powerful message that leadership is about showing compassion when it's needed most, and that the true strength of a person is often revealed in moments of vulnerability. The event became a turning point in how people viewed their leaders, not as distant figures of authority, but as human beings capable of empathy, kindness, and courage. It was a reminder that, despite our differences, we all share a common humanity, and that simple acts of kindness can make all the difference in the world.